Yun returned later that afternoon. His carefree attitude was gone. He reached for her hands, and the moment his gaze met hers, she knew what he was about to say. The next morning, Shola woke in Yun's embrace. This time, instead of pulling away, she snuggled closer. Soon, Lin's voice called from outside the door. "Your Highness, my lady, there is someone here from the palace. His Majesty has sent for Prince Yun." Yun sat up slowly. He said to Shola, "I'll go see my father and be back as soon as I can." He pressed a quick kiss to her forehead before getting up to prepare. Shola mustered a smile as he left, but unease rippled through her. She stayed home that day, letting someone else manage the store. When Yun returned later that afternoon, his carefree attitude was gone. He reached for her hands, and the moment his gaze met hers, she knew what he was about to say. "There was an attack on our border," Yun began. "The cities in the Linzhou province are in danger, and His Majesty has asked me to lead an army to push back the enemy." Shola swallowed hard, trying to suppress the wave of fear rising within her. She reminded herself of the plans she had put in place. Still, the dread remained. Yun placed his hands gently on her face, his thumbs brushing her cheeks. "Don't worry," he said softly. "I've fought them off before, and this time won't be any different. I'll be back before you know it." She nodded, forcing a smile. "When do you leave?" "Tonight," Yun replied. "I'll head to the camp and march with the army in the morning." "So soon." Shola rose to help Yun pack, putting together everything she felt he would need, while he changed into his military attire. Once he was ready, she excused herself and returned wearing one of the traditional Kandari outfits he had recovered from the palace. When Yun saw her, he froze, his breath catching. "You look beautiful, my darling." She smiled softly. "You look dashing as well. I thought I'd give you a little surprise before you leave. You once said you'd like to see me dressed like this. When you return, I'll dress this way as often as you want." Yun pulled her into a tight embrace, his lips brushing hers in a tender kiss. "I'll hold you to that," he whispered, his voice laced with emotion. As they stepped outside, Yun mounted his horse, his gaze lingering on her. Shola called out, her voice trembling, "Yun, don't forget to write to me, and please, come back to me safe." He grinned, that boyish charm momentarily breaking through the somber atmosphere. "I will, I promise." With one final glance, he turned and rode toward the camp. Shola remained standing by the gate until Lin approached, her voice soft. "Mistress, please don't cry. His Highness will return." Cry? It was only then Shola realized there were tears streaming down her face. She wiped them away. Yun would be fine. She would ensure it. The next morning, at the perfumery, Shola summoned her accountant. She instructed him to begin exchanging their profits for dry grain, but to do so discreetly, purchasing in small batches so as not to draw attention. The war dragged on for a month, and true to his word, Yun wrote to Shola every single day, updating her on the progress of the battles. His most recent letter brought the news Shola had been anxiously awaiting. Yun's army was on the brink of victory, successfully driving back the enemy forces. Although they were a little low on food and essential supplies, Yun had already requested provisions from the court and expected their arrival soon. But Shola knew better. The supplies would not come in time. The crown prince had deliberately delayed them, hoping Yun and his army would perish. The emperor, eager to diminish Yun's military influence, would turn a blind eye to this. She was the only one who could save him. 2 weeks later, Yun sat in his tent at the military camp, brooding over the situation. The army's supplies were dwindling, barely enough to last a couple more weeks. He knew the court wanted to get rid of him, but he hadn't anticipated that they would risk the lives of the people in Linzhou just to see him dead. In his recent letters to Shola, he hadn't told her how bad the situation had gotten, so she wouldn't be worried, how he missed her. A soldier interrupted his thoughts, announcing that someone from his manor was there to see him. Curious, Yun nodded for them to enter. When he looked up, his breath caught. Standing at the entrance to his tent, smiling brightly, was Shola. For a moment, he thought he was hallucinating until she teased, "What? Didn't you miss me?" Yun closed the distance, sweeping her into his arms and spinning her around in joy. "Shola, is it really you? What are you doing here?" Laughing, Shola took his hand and said, "I have a surprise for you." She led him outside, where rows of carts brimming with supplies awaited. Grain and other necessities piled high. Shola explained how she had used the profits from her business to purchase the grain, but that wasn't all. She revealed that months earlier, She had bought acres of farmland and livestock just outside the nearby city. The produce from those fields, combined with the grain she'd brought, would sustain the army for at least 2 months. Yun stood speechless, trying to comprehend it all. How had she known about the supply delays, or even where and when this war would take place? The questions swirled in his mind. But before he could voice them, Shola said softly, "I don't know how to explain how I knew, but you need to know that I will always be on your side." Yun's hand tightened around hers as he said, "I know, I trust you." Relief washed over Shola, seeing that Yun chose not to press further. Though Yun insisted on assigning guards to escort Shola safely back home, she adamantly refused. "I'll stay in the nearby city," she said. "That way, we can see each other often." After much hesitation, Yun relented. He couldn't deny the comfort of having her close, even amid the chaos of war. The war went on for another month, but despite the lack of reinforcements, Yun managed to drive back the enemy forces and reclaim lost territory. News of his victory quickly spread to the capital, where the citizens marveled at Prince Yun's brilliance on the battlefield. Whispers began circulating that Yun, not the crown prince, might be more suited to ascend the throne. When the crown prince heard of these rumors, a wave of panic gripped him. Feeling his position threatened, he resolved to bring Yun down as soon as possible. Meanwhile, Yun and Shola spent their days in relative peace, enjoying each other's company while working to help the city and its displaced citizens recover from the war's devastation. Just as things were settling down, an edict arrived from the capital. Prince Yun was ordered to return and deliver a report on the war to the emperor, with the promise of a reward for his victory. Yun found the timing unusual. His last orders had clearly instructed him to remain at the border, but he brushed aside his doubts and prepared for the journey.